The NXT Tag Team Championships were on the line this week on TNA Impact. Fraxium were defending against Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth. We had a Knockouts Battle Royal to determine the number one contender to Masha Slamovich's TNA Knockouts World Championship. We heard from Joe Hendry. We heard from Eric Young. We got a lot to talk about today, so let's get into it. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Wrasslin for Life Network and welcome to another edition of the TNA Impact Review. We got a lot to talk about. We had a really solid episode of TNA Impact with this week. I feel like the first half of the episode started off a bit slow, but when we got to the second half, it really kicked into high gear, and the final three matches of the night really put that TNA Impact episode over a 7.5 for me. But let's get into it. So we kicked off TNA Impact with Joe Hendry, a live Joe Hendry concert, and just like always, they're funny, they're entertaining, but we did get an interruption by Jake Something. In a way, Joe Hendry said, "This is the part where someone interrupts me and challenged me for the title." And that person is Jake Something. He said that he had talked to Santino Marella and that next week he has taken Joe Hendry up on his offer. Next week, Joe Hendry will be defending the TNA World Championship against Jake Something. And for Jake Something, I think this is huge. I think Jake Something is really, and no pun intended, but Jake Something is really on to something. I feel like Jake Something is really good in the ring. He may struggle a little bit on the mic, but I feel like he's a top tier talent and could potentially be TNA World Champion one day. Will it be next week? No, Joe Hendry is holding that title for a minute. I feel like at least until Slammiversary. I feel like we got to get Mike Santana in the world title picture. We got to get Mustafa Ali in the world title picture since he is back with TNA Wrestling. But Jake Something really has something, and I can't wait to see what happens with Jake Something. If they push him into the world title picture, does he eventually become TNA World Champion? I don't know, but I'm here for it. Next week should be a really good match between Jake Something and Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is at the top of his game right now. He's the TNA World Champion. He just appeared in the WWE Royal Rumble, the first ever TNA World Champion to appear in the men's Royal Rumble match. So proud for Joe Hendry. But next week, Joe Hendry will be taking on Jake Something. Next up on TNA Impact, we had Tyson DuPont versus Ace Austin. Ace Austin somewhat has aligned himself with the Rascals. Wesley has Tyson and Tyreek beside him. We know the history between Wesley and the Rascals. Wesley turned on the Rascals on NXT a couple of months ago. I want to say around September, October-ish, Wesley turned on the Rascals. So now they're kind of revisiting that feud and involving Ace Austin. Last week on TNA Impact, we had Ace Austin versus Wesley, with Wesley picking up the victory because of Tyson and Tyreek. This week, we got Ace Austin taking on one of those members, and that was Tyson. And I feel like Ace Austin won this match in convincing fashion. Ace Austin didn't waste any time taking out Tyson. I feel like this was a solid match. Every time Ace Austin is in the ring, he always delivers. I'm not really sure about Tyson at this point. This was actually, I do watch NXT a little bit. This was the first time I've seen Tyson actually wrestle. And to be honest, I wasn't really impressed by Tyson, but Ace Austin, he's always great, right? And after this match, after Ace Austin won, he was attacked by Wesley, Tyson, and Tyreek. And the Rascals came out and saved Ace Austin, kind of ran the other three off. So at this point, I feel like I said earlier, we're building something with Ace Austin, the Rascals, Tyson, Tyreek, and Wesley. I feel like we're heading to potentially a 6-person tag team match. It could be on the live episode of Impact February 20th. It could be at Sacrifice, which is in March this year. So I'm not sure where we're going with this story, but Ace Austin did pick up the win, like I said, in convincing fashion. So as we continue this review here, we do have to talk about everybody's favorite, person to talk about right now with a lot of controversy around her. That is in TNA wrestling, and that is Tessa Blanchard. We did see a Tessa Blanchard backstage segment, basically saying she's above every knockout in the knockouts division. She's not going to be a part of the knockouts battle royal to determine the number one contender to the TNA Knockouts World Championship. Basically, she's saying all of the women in the locker room have something against her, and that she technically doesn't have time for it. So we did get a brief moment with Tessa Blanchard. She did watch the Knockouts Battle Royal from backstage, but she did not participate like she said. But things are brewing with Tessa Blanchard. I don't know where we're going, or I don't know if we're heading to Masha versus Tessa, maybe at Rebellion, maybe at Slammiversary this coming summer. But it seems like Tessa Blanchard is sticking around for a minute. She's going to be in TNA wrestling. Still unsure if she has signed yet, but Tessa Blanchard, she's here, and it seems like she is here to stay. So this is a good segue to go into that knockouts battle royal. So the winner, like I said earlier, will receive a title shot. They will become the number one contender to the TNA Knockouts World Championship. We had some contenders in there. We had Danny Luna, we had Jody Threat, Ash and Heather by Elegance, Rosemary, Tasha Steeles, Alicia Edwards, and we had Jazz. We had Jazz return to TNA wrestling, and she was in the battle royal as well. But I want to say before we get into the winner and the details of the battle royal, I do believe this battle royal in a way kind of exposed the knockouts division, right? We need some knockouts in the knockouts division. I don't think that's a secret with the TNA faithfuls right now. We're lacking some knockouts, right? And I think this battle royal showed that we need some knockouts. It was only 10 women in this knockouts battle royal. We definitely need some knockouts in the division, and not just for the singles area, the singles division of the knockouts division, but also in the tag team division as well. And I believe 2025 for the knockouts division will be a rebuilding stage for them, so we can see some more talent in there. We did see some releases with WWE just this past week. Sonya Deville's contract is expiring with WWE. Sonya Deville would be a great pick for the knockouts division. I've heard that Indy Hartwell would like to be in the knockouts division, would like to be with TNA wrestling. That's a great choice as well. We got to get some knockouts in that division. But let's get back to the match. So we had the knockouts battle royal. And like I said, we had Jody Threat, Danny Luna, Ash, Heather, Tasha Steeles. Like I said, Jazz returned to TNA wrestling. And out of all of those women, Rosemary was in there, Zaya Brookside was in there. Out of all of those women, I would have chosen maybe Zaya Brookside, maybe Tasha Steeles, even though Tasha Steeles had just taken on Masha Slamovich just at Final Resolution in 2024. But even Rosemary, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, and this is not a bad call. This is not a bad decision. I'm excited for it because I've been calling for it since she returned to TNA wrestling. But Savannah Evans is the number one contender to the TNA Knockouts World Championship. That match goes down, from what I'm understanding, next week on TNA Impact. And this is great for Savannah Evans. I believe Savannah Evans has it. I do believe that I will put money on that Savannah Evans has the it factor for the knockouts division. She's tough, she's strong, she's powerful, and really they just got to kind of work out the kinks with Savannah Evans. She's really been sidelined for much of her run in TNA, and not with injury. It's because she was paired with Tasha, paired with Giselle Shaw, like as a bodyguard, security guard type persona. And now this is her time to shine as a singles competitor. So I am excited for Savannah Evans. Really, I think what would push Savannah over the edge as maybe a top knockout in the future is if Savannah Evans had like a mouthpiece, right? Someone that can speak for her. I don't think Savannah Evans needs to talk. Her presence alone tells you I'm here, and yeah, I got you. I got your number. I'm gonna beat you up, right? That's the presence that Savannah Evans has. And I believe if she had a mouthpiece just to speak for her, top tier talent in the knockouts division. I'm just saying. But like I said, it's going down next week. Savannah Evans challenges for the TNA Knockouts World Championship against Masha Slamovich. So we heard from Eric Young, shockingly, on TNA Impact just about 2 weeks ago. Eric Young turned on Josh Alexander. So it was Josh Alexander and Eric Young versus the Northern Armory, Saint and Sinner, Judas Icarus, and Travis Williams. And during that match, Eric Young turned on Josh Alexander. I was not expecting it. I'm pretty sure half or the majority of the TNA faithfuls expected it, but I didn't expect it. So this week, Eric Young came out to basically explain why he did that. And he said that Josh Alexander quit TNA and turned his back on the other members of the Northern Armory. And he, Eric Young, was not having that. He's going to step up as the new leader of the Northern Armory. He said TNA has a lot of Canadian roots in it, and he's not letting that go because of Josh Alexander. He lists his accolades in TNA wrestling. He is the new leader of the Northern Armory. Then we had Steve Macklin come out and basically confront Eric Young and basically say, these gentlemen took out, tried to take me out, tried to take my career. Why would you align yourself with them, right? Eric Young really couldn't give an explanation because he already did. He said he was not leaving these guys behind because Josh Alexander basically betrayed him. Then we got Josh Alexander to come out, which he confirmed, and we already knew this, that, he's done with TNA wrestling. He's going to explore free agency. But before he leaves, he wants to remind everybody that he is the heart and soul of TNA wrestling and that he loves this place. So next week, his final match with TNA wrestling, it will be him versus Eric Young in some singles competition, in some singles action. And I feel like this will be a phenomenal match between Josh Alexander and Eric Young. I would honestly have Josh Alexander win, but storyline wise, it would make more sense if Eric Young is going to be the new leader of the Northern Armory to take the victory here as Josh Alexander takes his exit from TNA wrestling. But again, it's going down next week. Josh Alexander's final match in TNA wrestling. It will be Josh Alexander versus Eric Young. I feel like this is when TNA started to heat up this week. This match right here was a 6-person tag team match. It was the Hardys teaming up with Leon Slater to take on the System. And y'all, this is when I got fully invested into TNA Impact this week. This match delivered. The Hardys can't break away from the System, right? Leon Slater has his own issues with the System right now. So it was a match made in heaven for the Hardys to team up with Leon Slater. And man, this match was incredible. If there's a match you got to go out of your way to see from this week's episode of TNA Impact, it's this one, the Hardys and Leon Slater versus the System. And speaking of the System, taking a sidestep here, JDC showed up on NXT this week representing the System. So I feel like we're getting closer to this System showing up on NXT television. But back to this wild exchange of a match. It was insane with the Hardys and Leon Slater picking up the victory. I don't know where we go from here. The tag team division needs a little bit rebuilding as well, but they do have some solid tag teams in there. We got the System, we got the Hardys, we got the Rascals, we got the Good Hands, we got the Northern Armory. So we got some tag teams in there, right? And then with the partnership with NXT, we could see some NXT tag teams coming over to TNA as well. We've seen the current tag team champions in NXT a couple of times already. But y'all, I'm telling y'all, I'm going to end this part by saying, y'all got to go see this match. Y'all got to go see Leon Slater team up with the Hardys to take on the System. This was an excellent, excellent match. You always got to trust the System, but you also got to believe in the Hardys and Leon Slater. Excellent match, top tier. I am sure it is on YouTube. Go check it out. I briefly, and what I mean by briefly, I briefly want to touch on this because something is brewing And we got the start of it this past week. Tasha Steelz in the Battle Royal was betrayed by her former tag team partner, Alicia Edwards. Alicia Edwards actually eliminated Tasha Steelz from the Battle Royal. We got a backstage segment with Mustafa Ali. He de-escalated an argument with the Good Hands, both members of the Good Hands, and then he passed by Tasha Steelz, who was visibly upset that she did not win that Knockouts Battle Royal. And something happened. Something happened. A partnership, maybe. Tasha Steelz and Mustafa Ali potentially in a partnership. Mustafa Ali gave her some words of wisdom and basically said, "This you put your heart out there, you put your heart on the line, and you're always betrayed by your friends. That no longer can happen. We have to change that today." And he extended his hand, and Tasha took his hand, and they walked away. And that's how I'm going to leave it, because that's how they left it. Something interesting is brewing with Mustafa Ali and Tasha Steelz, and I'm going to be seated as this continues to grow. So next we have Mike Santana versus Matt Cardona in some singles action. It seems like Matt Cardona is sticking around for a little bit with TNA Wrestling. Mike Santana on his way to the top of the main card, on the way to the top of, the main event scene, challenging for that TNA World Championship soon. A couple of weeks ago when Mustafa Ali made his re-debut, actually signed with the company, hadn't seen him in a couple of months there. I think it was about 8 months. He did interrupt Mike Santana and didn't even pay Mike Santana any mind. This week, Mike Santana seems like he was trying to get back on track, kind of get back to where he wants to be. And his first step to do that was to go through Matt Cardona, which he did, and I thought the match was great. A lot of people feel like Matt Cardona is overrated, but I really like Matt Cardona, and I think he's doing some great work right now. Mike Santana is at the top of his game, at the top of his career, has been doing, and I say this almost every time I, talk about Mike Santana on the review, but Mike Santana came to TNA again at Rebellion last year, busted through the door, and has not stopped since. And I believe Mike Santana is really the next in line to be TNA World Champion. We still got to, think about Frankie Kazarian because he holds that trophy, but I believe Mike Santana is in line to win the TNA World Championship sometime this year. If it's not summer at Slammiversary, it's at least at the end of the year. I don't think we see this year end without Mike Santana being TNA World Champion. But this was a great match as well. The final 3 matches of TNA Impact this week really turned the tides for me. The first part of the episode was kind of lackluster, and then the last 45 minutes of TNA Impact this week really kicked into high gear. So the final 3 matches you really got to check out. We had the Hardys and Leon Slater team up to take on the System. We had Matt Cardona versus Mike Santana, and now we will talk about the main event. And now we get to the main event. The main event is Wrasslin versus Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth for the NXT Tag Team Championships. This is like the second or third time the NXT Tag Team Championships have been defended on TNA. This partnership is starting off really, really good, but this match, I see why people like Wrasslin, right? I like Wrasslin too. Nothing against them, but I'm starting to see over the past couple of months here, watching NXT, watching TNA, why Wrasslin, is it in the NXT tag team division. But Wrasslin and Ryan and Nick Nemeth, this was a banger match. Honestly, could be match of the night. You can argue with this one because the 6-man tag team match with the Hardys, Leon Slater, and the System really delivered and kicked the episode into high gear. And then to end it with Wrasslin, Nick Nemeth, and Ryan Nemeth, chef's kiss. TNA did their thing, putting this match in the main event. This match obviously was won. I shouldn't say obviously, because on commentary they talked about a lot. about, you know, a TNA team winning the NXT Tag Team Championships. And I feel like that's coming soon. I feel like we're going to see some title swapping soon with the two promotions. So I don't want to say obviously, because Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth really had an opportunity to take the NXT Tag Team Championships and keep them on TNA Wrestling, right? But Fraxium did win. They retained the Tag Team Championships in a phenomenal match. This one, like I said, 3 matches, the final 3 matches of TNA Impact this week, you got to go out of your way and watch. Fraxium and Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth tore the house down. But speaking of Nick and Ryan Nemeth, I feel like there's going to be some dissension between between the two brothers. Nick Nemeth is clearly a face, no doubt about it. And Ryan is showing heel vibes. Ryan is technically a heel. So we got the two brothers, we got a face and a heel on the same team. I don't know if this leads to Ryan turning face. I don't think it is, but I feel like this leads to a potential Nick Nemeth heel turn. In a way, Ryan Nemeth grabbed a chair and brought it into the ring, and Nick Nemeth was like, no, we don't do this. We don't do this. And in a way, it cost them the match. And that's by Fraxium retain the NXT Tag Team Championships. So there's a lot going on here with Nick and Ryan. There's a lot going on in the tag team division. We got First Class out there. There's a lot. And I'm interested to see how they play this out with the TNA Tag Team Championships and the NXT Tag Team Championships. It's interesting, but I also want to see how the breakdown of Ryan and Nick happens. Do they both turn heel? Do they both turn face? I don't know, but it seems like they're going with, you know, some dissension between the two brothers. That is it for the TNA Impact review. We covered Joe Hendry. We covered Mike Santana versus Matt Cardona. We covered the Knockouts division and the Battle Royal. We got some good matches coming up next week, too, that I know off the top of my head so far. Joe Hendry defending the TNA World Championship against Jake Something, and Savannah Evans challenging Masha Slamovich for the TNA Knockouts World Championship. So be seated for next week's episode of TNA Impact. I will be back next week with another review covering that entire episode as well. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you. If you are listening on any of the podcasting platforms, I thank you as well. I am your host, Ringsider Anthony, and I will see you in the next one.